Hey folks, you know I take my trail camera intel pretty seriously. It's a huge part of how I build my hunting strategy, and I'm always looking for gear that just flat out works. Stuff I can rely on. Backed by solid people and the best customer support in the business. That's exactly why I run Tacticam Reveal cell cameras. Whether you're just getting started or you're a full-blown data junkie like me, they've got a camera to fit your budget and your hunting style. My go-to currently is the Reveal 3.0 series with fully integrated GPS. These things are dead simple to set up. Less fiddling, more scouting and hunting. And they run on most major service providers and will automatically connect you to the strongest signal in your area. So no more hiking to the top of a ridge just to realize you've got the wrong service provider. Been there, not fun. Here's the kicker. You don't even need an SD card. That means fewer trips in, less pressure on your spots, and more real-time intel sent straight to your phone. And if you pair it with a Reveal solar panel or a lithium cartridge, you can keep those cameras running longer and spend more time doing what actually matters. Scouting new ground, dialing in a setup, or maybe, just maybe, finally cleaning the garage like you told your wife you would before the season started. Don't just take my word for it. Check out Tacticam Reveal at tacticam.com. Tacticam. Everything you need to take your hunting to the next level. Stay more comfortable, more concealed, and in the stand longer with Oscio gear. Premium camouflage apparel created for bow hunters by bow hunters. Oscio's revolutionary patented camo patterns and innovative features are designed to keep whitetail bow hunters totally invisible and dead quiet. Elevate your game with Oscio. Visit asiogear.com and take 20% off your purchase with code TRUTH20. If you're like me, e-scouting isn't just part of the process, it is the process. And nobody's doing it better than Spartan Forge. This is a veteran-owned company that built the only science-based scouting platform on real GPS collar data and artificial intelligence to predict deer movement. But where it really shines is with their imagery. Spartan Forge now has a high-res UAV coverage for 80% of the whitetail states, down to 5-centimeter detail. That means you can see trails, old logging roads, cuts, even subtle vegetation changes that most apps completely miss. And if you really want to get nerdy, their LiDAR layer breaks right through the canopy so you can see the forest floor. Gives you some visibility to those hidden draws, ditches that big bucks absolutely love to live in. Add in historical wind data and a desktop-only features like Eagle Eye and Cyber Scout, and you've got the most advanced hunting app out there. Start your risk-free 14-day trial today at spartanforge.ai. Welcome to the Troops on the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Tacticam Reveal Cellular Cameras. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 465. Today, I'm joined by my buddy, Dom Palombo, to talk about killing a giant against all odds on small ground. So stay tuned. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today, I got on a fellow Pennsylvania guy, Mr. Dominic Palombo. What's going on, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, man. Just wrapped up a work day, was looking at the weather. You know, I don't know when exactly this will come out, but we got a little bit of a cold front coming that I'm kind of excited for. So I'm trying to plan.
Yes, sir.
trying to make some plans of how I'm going to get out of town, how I might sneak out of work a little bit early and stuff like that for the next couple of days. But how are things in your neck of the woods, buddy? Good?
Things are doing good, man. I'm tagged out, so time to hang out with the kids and wife, you know.
That's right. You're onto the honey-do list for next year even.
Man, I've been working on my house for the past, so we moved in last October and the work hasn't stopped, man. It's always a new, project, and which I'm fine with because I want the house to look nice.
Right.
Yeah, man, it's always something, but it is what it is. Yeah. So
yeah, home ownership, man. It's never ending. There's always something that kind of comes up. At least it sounds like you're handy and able to do a lot of the stuff on your own. Like I'm a fly by. Yeah.
That's it, man.
Right.
YouTube. If this was 20 years ago, I would be so screwed. I would have an idea,
Yeah, exactly. There was someone asking me at one point, because I always make fun. Like I'm real honest. I'm not the most mechanically inclined guy, when it comes to, it's not how my brain works, and, but I built the travel trailer that I have that I hunt out of, that I drag around with me all over the country. And I put solar in it and propane and I built that whole thing. And
Nice.
Someone was like, man, they were like, you say you're not mechanically inclined, but you built this whole trailer thing. And I'm like, yeah, I was like, I watched a lot of YouTube videos and I was like, it works. I was like, but if anyone looked to check and make sure anything's level or square, I was like, there ain't a thing in that thing that's level or
Do
square.
not peel back the onion. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. I was like, I built it to where everything's exposed. That way, if I ever have to fix anything, it's not like I have to tear a bunch of stuff apart. It's like I just rip the thing out that doesn't work and replace it.
Absolutely. Right.
So nothing's hidden in the walls, nothing like that. It doesn't look nice. It's everything I need and nothing I don't. That's how I kind of like to say it.
But it works. That's all that matters.
But it works. That's right. But don't ask me to put a roof on a house or anything like that. Or you're gonna have some problems.
I'm pulling the money out of the pocket for that one. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is I used to, when I lived in Florida years ago, I used to do roofs with a friend of mine. He was a contractor, and so I was in a band and I was on the road and stuff a lot. And so like working with him was perfect because anytime I was home, I could just jump on jobs with him and work as long as I needed to, or as long as I was home, and then I could leave, because he could always use the help. And
Right.
so, we got our roof done, I think like a year ago or something like that. My dad was like, you're not going to do that yourself. And I was like, no. He's like, didn't you do roofs? And I was like, yeah, for probably like 2 years. He's like, you don't know how to do them? I was like, oh, no. I was like, I don't know how to actually do it. I was like, I tore stuff off and I put it on. Like he told me, hey, go nail this stuff over here like this. And I would go nail stuff like that over there.
You didn't know exactly why you were doing it. You were just doing it because you were told, right?
I was just doing what I was told. That was it, man. That's it. The quintessential laborer, not going to ask a lot of questions. Just going to go do it.
You just have to get it done, right?
That's right, man. But we're going to talk some deer hunting here, man. Before we do that, though, I always like to kind of start with just letting people. I know when I kind of introduced you, I mentioned you're from Pennsylvania, but I like to get people a little bit of background about the people that are on the show, just so they have some context as to like what their experiences are and stuff like that. So,
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind, give me a little background about you. Where you're from and what you do for a living to start.
Absolutely. So yeah, man. I live about 10 minutes north of Pittsburgh. I've lived here pretty much my whole life. I've been archery hunting since I was about 14 years old. Whenever I turned 17, I enlisted in the Marine Corps. Served 4 years active duty, 3 of which I spent overseas, in Okinawa, Japan.
Mhm.
Whenever I came home, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, man. I was 22 at the time. Thought I had things figured out, which I didn't, I did a couple oddball jobs just to get by. And then at this point, I was like 23, 24. And I'm like, all right, man, like you have to figure out what you want to do. I went to college, thought I wanted to be a nurse. That ended horribly. Did not want to be a nurse after like my second year in. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is not what I want to do.
Right.
So I ended up graduating from a college around here. And at the time, I had a couple buddies out were in law enforcement, and they were like, dude, just try it out. You might like it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, the GI Bill, they would pay for the academy. So I went, I tried it, and I've been a cop for the last 3 years, and it's been a great job. I can't really complain. Yeah.
Awesome. And well, first off, thank you for your service in the military. And then also thank you for your public service here as a Leo. So I appreciate that.
All the support, man. Luckily, I work in a great area, so we get more hellos than FUs.
Right.
So,
that's always good, right?
That's always a great thing, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. It's funny, when you're young, how you think you have stuff kind of figured out. We were talking before we started recording that my daughter's getting ready to go to college. Like she's a senior this year. She'll go off to college next year.
Right.
And I just think about her, making these decisions that are going to, impact a part of her life, that she's making.
Maybe, right.
Yeah. And I just think about how silly it is to put so much pressure on ourselves at 18 to 24 that we have to think we have things figured out, because you just don't. Like, you don't have enough life experience to figure it out. You know what I mean? It's like you need that time to kind of have some experiences, take some lumps, and then
not only that, man, but opportunities come at such weird times. Like I remember before I went to the police academy, I was like, what am I doing, man? Like, this stinks. Like, I don't, I'm 25, 26. Like, what am I doing with my life? And then the opportunity presented itself. And if you would have told me whenever I was like 18 that I'm going to be a cop, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. But it's funny just how things work out, and you just have to give it time. That's what I tell a lot of people that are like, I'm 28, 29, like I really don't know what to do. It's like, just ride the wave, man. Just ride it out. You just have
Yeah.
to keep on, you know, try to keep on doing the right thing, and hopefully God has a plan for you and it works out.
Yeah, exactly. That's just it, man. And that's what I try to, and I think it's also pays off in deer hunting. I mean, a lot of these lessons that you pick up, as you get more mature. I don't even want to say older, because I think a lot of times you meet, every now and then you'll meet a young person who really kind of has their priorities and stuff in order, and they're on the path, right?
Right.
But it even relates to deer hunting, because all you have to do, and I try to impress this on my daughter, and she does a pretty good job of it, but is just try to make the best decisions you can with the information that you have, right? If you just do that
Absolutely.
every day, you
Hmm.
don't have to make like this huge life altering decision at one time, right? If you just stack like the small wins and the small decisions and make good decisions overall over time, you'll look back in 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is and go, man, I've had a lot of success and I've done a lot of the stuff that in hindsight, I look back and I think is really valuable, right?
Right.
And you have the same thing in hunting, where you might have a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years of just making good decisions, but things just not breaking your way for whatever reason, right?
I know all
Maybe,
about that. Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
everybody does, right? It's like a deer
Yeah.
gets bumped, or the deer gets killed that you were chasing, or maybe you started hunting a new area that you're not real familiar with, and you just kind of take your lumps and you make the best decisions you can as you go. And when you look back after a couple years, you finally fill that tag or whatever the case is, whatever your success is, your metric is, and
Right.
you look at it and you go, man, I actually was doing a lot of the right stuff along the way. And it's really all those small decisions that I made along the way of like not taking the easy path, taking the harder path, even though it wasn't great at the time. Like that was where I learned this lesson that ultimately helped me here,
Right.
and that's what it's all about. That's the journey, right?
Absolutely.
If you just walked out into the timber and just filled your tag immediately every year, it wouldn't be quite
Yeah.
as fun. Some of those years are great. Don't get me wrong. I like
Absolutely.
those.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. But they're earned. They're earned
Yeah.
over years of the suffering, so to speak, right?
Yeah. My wife, she really doesn't get why I do what I do. And she's like, "You're absolutely insane. Like you are absolutely sick." Just the amount of gear that I have, and always online looking at new things, and always on OnX, or trying to get new property. It's like, dude, like if you've been doing this long enough, and you just have an appreciation for the animal and like what it offers, more than just shooting an arrow into a deer, there's just so much more to it that if you haven't been exposed to it, it's hard to explain to people,
Mm-hmm.
because it isn't just about putting your tag on the animal. It's about from A to Z what it takes to get to hopefully Z.
Mm-hmm.
And everything in between there that just means so much to you as a hunter. And a lot of people that I know that hunt, they don't really get that either. You're like, dude, you're crazy. Like, you're gonna hike 2 miles in on, a piece of property to do a hanging hunt just to rip it down and walk back out. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I want to kill this big buck. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
um, it's just there's a lot that goes into it, and if you haven't put the work in and sort of got your ass kicked a little bit, you're not going to experience that gratitude whenever things do work out in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
I've had many seasons where, I find a good deer and I scout, hang cameras, do everything right. And it just doesn't work out for you. And it's
Mm-hmm.
and it and it's absolutely horrible. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes you humble whenever you do notch your tag, because all it takes, like you said, is just that one time where the deer goes left and not right. It just sort of puts things into a perspective, for you to appreciate it better whenever things work out in your favor, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, the humility part of it is so overlooked, I think. And I don't want people to mistake humility for lack of confidence, because that's not true. You can be confident and humble at the same time. There's just something that I watched this year, not hunting related, but I'm a big wrestling fan. Like I love wrestling, college wrestling specifically, and I follow
Yeah.
I follow Penn State. And this season, for example, just one guy on the team as an example that I I've followed him basically like his whole career. Watched him some like I knew of him in high school, and I've watched him like collegiately and stuff like that. It was is Levi Haynes from Penn State, right? He won a national title when he was a sophomore. He was a runner up as a true freshman, if I'm not mistaken, and he placed third last year. And he was like probably the hands-on title favorite to win a national title last year. Lost, came back, wrestled back, placed third, and then he went on a run this year in the senior freestyle circuit, made the world team, where his last run for worlds, he didn't make the world team. He had an okay show. And it was really, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was his first like real foray into like the senior circuit. And this year, like he just went on a tear, won his world team slot, went to worlds, beat a returning world champion, and ended up winning silver and had a great match in the finals.
Yeah.
And that's just a really good example of, sometimes when you don't get the thing that you want right away, it's not a sign that it's not coming. It's
Right.
just a sign that you're taking the right steps. And like, if you have some humility and you just keep working, like your time will come.
I
Right.
agree.
And that was a great example of watching him go through that. I was like, because you could think about it and say, here's a person that probably, for all intents and purposes, most people probably thought he was a shoo-in to win a national title, right? Like he was going to be he's a ranked number one, should be ranked number one this year. So you should project like to win a national title this year. And he would be another Penn State 3-time national title winner, right?
Right.
And a loss like that for a person who doesn't have perspective could put them in the hole, right? And could be hard to come back from. But those guys, a lot of times, are those people that have those hardships, whether it's in wrestling in his instance or in hunting where things aren't breaking your way. Those guys, and girls usually end up being the most successful because they know how to turn like those challenges into opportunities.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That was a long-winded way of saying challenges into opportunities, but
no, man. So I've wrestled since I was 14. I quit. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, but I quit everything going into my sophomore or junior year just because I was trying to prepare to go to the Marine Corps. And I seen a lot of my friends, they would break their leg, tear something, and I'm like, man, if I break my leg, and I can't go right after high school, like I'm going to be upset. So I quit everything. I sort of kick myself in the ass now because I wish I could have that time back. But yeah, man, playing sports, it humbles you because it always doesn't, work out in your favor, especially wrestling. Like whenever you get your ass kicked on the mat and you're like, man, I got a tournament, I got 4 more matches and I have to get again, like it's just humbling, man. It really is,
Yeah, it's like you got to strap it up pretty quick. And I think hunting's the same way. Like you get into situations where, we've all been there, where we've been on a hunt, and even if it's not a deer we're targeting, maybe we don't have a target deer, maybe we're just trying to kill a good deer and we're in an area where we're like, hey, there should be some good deer in this area. And you see one, you miss one, right? And a lot of people, man, especially if you're on like a travel hunt or something like that, it puts them in the tank. Where
I know
it almost ruins the entire trip. Like it's happened to me, like where I was in Iowa and I missed a hammer, on day 6 or day 5 of the hunt, whatever it was. And I was going to be there for like 16 days. I had 10 more days to either sulk and be miserable,
right,
or just, dust it off and get back at. Yeah. I had 2 choices, and I chose to dust it off and ended up killing a deer at the end of the trip. But but it's very kind of applicable to what we go through in hunting, because you're going to have those near misses, and a lot of times the way you bounce back from those things will ultimately decide how your season ends up, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, man, talk to me a little bit about, because you mentioned you started bow hunting when you were 14, but like, I grew up not far from where you're from, roughly, so I kind of have a pretty good idea, but talk to me a little bit about how you got started hunting in general. Like, was it a family thing? Was it just something you kind of found on your own? Like, how did that all kind of play out?
Yeah. So on my mom's side, my grandfather, I remember whenever I was a young boy, he would take me out whenever I was like 5 and 6. And I just remember walking with him through the woods. and just, thinking like, this is insane. Like, we're actually in the woods. Like, this is great. But at the time I was a little bit too young to hunt, but just being out in, the wild was just an overwhelming feeling. I can remember it even though I was so young. But unfortunately he actually passed whenever I was 9. And from there I never really had anybody to like guide me or really take me under their wing.
Mhm.
I had a couple close friends that I reached out to, and they sort of showed me the ropes. And then from there, I was pretty much self-taught, like how to shoot a bow. Um, just learning everything on my own, trial and error throughout the
Mhm.
years. I began my first year hunting. I was 14, um, and then from there, it was just I sort of just ran with it, man. It was.
Mhm.
I feel like it was always in my blood because on my dad's side, my great grandfather, I found these old tapes of him I think it was goose hunting, grouse hunting. So like hunting's always been in the family, just not super hardcore to where like, oh, like we're gonna go to deer camp every year.
Mhm.
I just never had that growing up. So that's something that I'm hoping to strive for in the next like 5 to 10 years. I can maybe find a camp so the future generations have a place in, a tradition.
Right.
Um, but yeah, man, I was pretty much self-taught ever since I was young. And it's funny because I remember after my grandfather passed away on my mom's side, um, I can still remember waking up early in the morning during hunting season, throwing on some camo and just walking through the woods with no weapon at all,
Mhm.
just sitting down on a tree and just watching,
Mhm.
and just that overwhelming feeling of like I'm with nature. Like it was just it's hard to explain, but you probably get it. Um,
I totally get it, man, because I had a lot of I mean, I grew up in a hunting family, but I lived in the rural area of PA to where, I'd come home after school and it was I lived in an area where if you weren't at wrestling practice or football practice or baseball practice or something like that, it's like you had to kind of make your own fun. I didn't have neighbors, you
right,
know, and so it was a lot of times just me going to the woods and just doing what you were saying, which is like I would sit, I would try to find deer, I would try to see if I could find turkeys, I would try to see if I could
right,
jump some grouse or whatever it was. I would just go out and to your point, I remember like as soon as you said, you get that overwhelming feeling that I would sometimes get to a place and sit down and just get butterflies. Like I
right,
would be so excited about just being, and I think part of it as a young boy growing up too, was that independence of being able to go into the woods and
right,
navigate my way around, and find my way back home
right,
and stuff like that to where it felt like I was doing a lot of what my dad does and what my uncles do and what my grandfather does and stuff like that.
right.
So it kind of felt like I was ascending, if you will,
Absolutely.
if
Right.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I can remember like it was, yesterday just because where I lived, I grew up in Glenshaw, PA. I'm not sure if you
Mm,
know where that's at.
mm,
So it's
yep.
very suburban, very suburban. But behind my house there was a hillside and it was all wooded. And I remember, man, I would just walk over the hill and I would just hang out,
Hmm.
until the sun, and I did that for many years without a weapon in my hand, just
Hmm.
because I wanted to be outside and to be with, nature. And whenever I turned 14, my mom and dad, they got me a, Matthews Mission, I believe it
Hmm.
was a compound, and, it was over after that, man. It was over after that. I just fell in love, man, absolutely
Yeah.
fell in love with the sport. Um, I try not to call hunting a sport because I don't think it is. I think
Yeah.
it's more of a lifestyle, but, yeah, man, shooting a bow is something I just absolutely love.
Hmm.
Up until just a couple years ago, actually, I refused to take a gun into the woods for deer season.
Hmm.
I I remember my buddy. I went up to his camp the one year, and it was the first year. I think it was before the military. I think I was 17, and I was like, "Hey, Chuck, can I bring my archery stuff?" He's like, "Why?" It's like it'll be gun season. I'm like, "I don't know, man. I just like shooting my bow." He's like, "No, man, you have to bring your gun." I'm like, "Ah, whatever." Uh, but I actually tagged out early that year, so I was just a driver. But yeah, man, just something about being in the woods with a bow is just it just feels like you're grounded.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. The there's just something, even on some days where I'm out and, you know, like this past weekend was a great example where I was really just kind of checking a lot of trail cameras this past weekend on a piece I haven't hunted or hadn't been back to since I put cameras out in like May.
Right.
And the chances of me seeing something, was pretty low based on this area, how it hunts and stuff like that. But there was just, it's almost like, I'm back. It's October finally. It's where you
Yeah.
just like, you feel like where you're supposed to be. You're
Uh-huh.
almost like spend part of the year feeling somewhat out of place. And then when October lands and you're able to pick your bow back up and do the things that you want to do, you're just like, this
Without a doubt.
fits. It's like
Without
putting an old pair of pants on. You know what
Right.
I mean? Is
Right.
what it is.
Absolutely, man.
So talk to me a little bit about, I know you're north of Pittsburgh somewhere, and I'm roughly familiar with that area. Talk to me a little bit about like the type of areas that you're hunting. Like, what's the terrain like? What's the vegetation like? Like, what's that setup look like?
Hmm. So
I
around
don't
home,
want you to give away any spots or anything like that. Just more so like description.
yeah. So around home, very suburban. Lot of houses, man. Small properties. You'll be lucky to find a property that has maybe 2, 3 acres to the owner.
Mm,
So access is very difficult. Getting permission's very difficult because a lot of people around here, they think of hunting and they're like, absolutely not.
mhm,
So that can be challenging. The woods around here, we have a lot of oaks, thick briar patches. Um, Not so much. There's a lot of hills around here, man.
mhm,
Not so much like flat ag land. Unfortunately, I love that, but we don't have that around here.
mhm,
A lot of drainages, hillsides, things of that nature. You will come across like a flat ground here or there, but for the most part, man, there's a lot of hilly areas around here. And if anyone else that's watching this, interview, you can attest if you know where I'm from, that is the
mhm.
case. And it could just be challenging, man. Trying to get permission around here is not easy. It's really not.
Yeah, yeah,
And so the thing is, getting permission can sometimes be tough. And if you do get permission, you have to be careful because there's so many houses, and you have to be within that certain range. You can't be under 50 yards, I believe it is, with, a bow.
mhm,
And a lot of that you don't, you just don't have around here. So it can make it very challenging. I've found many deer in the past where I'm like, I can't legally kill this thing.
right.
No, it's not worth it. It's not worth, getting in trouble. It's just not. And
Yeah,
that's something that we face here a lot, man. But overall, um, the terrain here is not the greatest. It's really not.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of the things, like, given the description you gave, what are some of the things that you kind of have to pay attention to, like when you're scouting and you're thinking of potential setups and things of that nature? Like you'd mentioned, like proximity to a structure or whatever, which makes sense, right? But and then of course, like you have, hills, undulating terrain, et cetera, et cetera. So what are the things you're kind of keying in on when you're scouting? Because like, for me, for example, like I do a little bit of like I wouldn't even call it suburban hunting. I live in the suburbs, but I don't really hunt in the suburbs. And it was challenging for me because I like to be able to kind of, if there's a deer somewhere, I want to go get it, right? Or I want to be
Right.
able to I want to be able to roam. And my biggest thing was just accessing properties was hard. Like not just properties, like not getting access to them, but like you have access, but actually how you're going to get in and out was a challenge because I was so limited. That was one of the things that like I had to spend a lot of time trying to figure out in scouting, where when I'm on bigger pieces, entry and exit is still important, but I have a lot more options.
Right.
Right. So I'm just curious for you when you're scouting, like what are some of the things you're focusing on when you're trying to make a hunt plan for the year?
Yeah. Whenever I'm looking for new ground, honestly, man, you have to get in there and you just have to walk it, see if it's even worth your time. A lot of the times I get super pumped up. I'm like, man, I just achieved this great property. I'm gonna go see what, is there. And, you start walking and you're like, there's a ladder stand here, ladder hang on over here. Like, forget about it.
Right.
At that point, man, it's like you're gonna waste your time. I mean, you could get lucky, um, but I don't want to be in anyone's business, man.
Mhm.
I try to be low key as much as I can. And around here, man, whenever you're driving down the road and you're like, man, that looks great, I can guarantee you there is somebody already in
Right.
there hunting it.
Right.
And that's the challenge around here is, the patches of woods that are a little bit larger, um, 90% of the time, there is somebody already in there. So
Mm,
if I can find a little honey hole, within a couple 100 yards where I don't see any sign of anyone else, I'm going to key in on that hard because,
mm,
that might mean that there's less pressure right there. So the deer might want to hang out there for whatever reason. Those are the things that I look for. Um, because just, given my history with hunting around here, I know people or just weekend, warrior type hunters, and they really don't care about wind or access, and they're just blowing everything out.
mhm,
And I try not to waste my time too much, just because with 3 kids, full time job, I try to make every sit worthwhile. You know,
right.
Whenever I was younger, I would just hunt to hunt, man. I didn't care about the wind. I didn't care where I was at. I just wanted to be in a tree somewhere. Um, so now that I'm older, time's very valuable. So I try to make every sit count. Um,
Mm,
you know, this year, honestly, man, going into this season, I was sort of like, I don't have a deer to go after.
hmm,
I had a couple properties that I was running cameras on that I've had success, in the years past, but I wasn't seeing anything worth my while to go leave my family.
mhm.
But that's just, the nature of the beast. Um, I'm trying to think where I was sort of going with that. I'm sorry.
No, you're all good. So it sounds like you're using partially, you're partially scouting pressure to kind of find pockets where the deer might be pushed based on the pressure. Is that a fair kind of assessment?
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is a great way to put it. Something else I just want to harp on is, I said there's a lot of hills around here, so a lot of people aren't willing to walk up a cliff
Hmm.
into a tree. I am.
Yeah.
If that means that, I could potentially cross the deer I'm after, then I'm gonna walk up that hill, sweat my ass off, and you know, it is what it is. Actually, it's funny because this year I found a good deer early in the season, ran cameras, and where he was coming from, I knew a gentleman that was on that property, and I was like, let me try the back end, but the back end was just a sheer cliff that went up, and it was gonna be a tight spot to hunt, but legally I would have been able to hunt there and maybe see the deer.
Yeah.
Um, but of course I climbed up to the very top and on the logging road, I seen a cell cam and I'm like, of course, so at this point I'm like, I'm just leaving, man. Like it isn't worth, trying to hang a camera and because, I've had many instances in the past where you come across some other dude in the woods, that's hunting and shit can get heated pretty quick.
Hmm.
Like, what are you doing here? And I try to avoid that the most I can, just because I know what it's like if I'm at if I'm at a spot first and someone moves in, you're like, come on, man, like have some ethics. Um,
Right.
so I try to not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's funny you say that because I was literally as I was pulling cameras this past weekend, and now granted, where I was at this past weekend is a big woods piece, 10 like tons of acreage, like more acreage than you can shake a stick at. Put it that
right,
way, right? And there's not really a reason to kind of be on top of somebody or whatever, or it's very rare. I'll put it that way. It's very rare.
right,
And I'm going through and checking cameras, and uh, I get to one camera, and I didn't have one there last year, and it always gave me pretty decent intel. Um, and I was like, I'm going to put one, there this year again, because the deer I was after last year is not around anymore. I was like, I probably just need a little bit of a wider net, and see if I can't rustle something up, right? So I was like, I'll put a camera back in this spot again, and hung a camera there in like May, whenever it was, and hadn't been back since. Go in there, and I'm all stoked to check the camera, and I get there, and there literally is a tree. I'm not lying when I say it's not even 5 feet away from where my camera is. Someone else put their camera like 5 feet away from mine. I just shook my head. Like, I mean, it is. I mean, look, it's public land. People can hang cameras wherever they want to hang them.
Right.
I would maybe not hang it right on top of someone else's camera.
Right.
It just kind of it made me laugh. And as you're telling that story, and I know like from your description, you're hunting a lot tighter spaces. You know what I mean? Where it's like that idea of someone else already being there is probably pretty common, right? But in this area that I'm in,
Right.
with as much territory as there is, the fact that someone's going to hang a camera right on top of yours. I mean, even if you just go 50 yards away and just play like the travel route 50 yards, like whatever. I mean, I'm not upset about it. It is what it is. I laughed about it, took a picture of it and sent it to my buddy. I was like, now you'll see that stuff out west and like elk hunt and stuff like that. Like there'll be like a fence post somewhere and you'll have like people put 6 cameras on a fence post.
Are you
know
serious?
what I mean?
Wow.
Oh yeah. You'll definitely see that out there for sure. But yeah, so it happens but I'm the same way, man, where it's like, if I see someone's stuff, it's like, I just kind of move on. Or if I really want a camera or something in that spot, then I'll find like another way to get my intel in that general area. Like I don't have to have it right in that spot necessarily.
Absolutely. Right.
You know what I mean? So man, I want to talk a little bit about, how you're finding deer, man. And I want to talk about specifically early season. Like you've had the past couple seasons, this one included, obviously, like you've killed some great deer, and you've done it, earlier in the year. I want to say last year you killed in September as well, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Last year it was September 24th. I think it was like the third or fourth day of the season. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the year before that, if I'm not mistaken, it was like next to last week of October, if I'm not mistaken, something like that, right? Yeah. And so, you're having success earlier in the season, basically like either like before pre-rut even, or just as like pre-rut kind of starts, right? And so, what, like in your mind, what have you been doing that has been the key to kind of stacking those wins the past couple years?
I'm going to be honest, man. Working your ass off in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people hate it. I have a lot of friends. They're like, man, I don't know how you're out there. It's 95 degrees. I don't want to be sweating my ass off. It sucks.
Guilty as charged. I hate the summer. Like it's terrible. Yeah. I get you.
I hate the summer. Like every year, my wife's like, can we go to the beach? I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I hate the beach. Like, let's go somewhere else. Like maybe let's go to Colorado or like, I don't know, somewhere cool.
Right.
Yeah, man, I am not a fan of hot weather whatsoever. But I'm a firm believer, if you do hard work in the summer and you run cameras and, mock scrapes, and you can figure out where these deer are at, and you can obtain permission in a relatively close area of where you're seeing them throughout the summer, you have a good chance of capitalizing the first week. And I really didn't start having this mindset because I'm going to be honest, 5-6 years ago, I was never really like a hard charger hanging cameras like in June, July, August. I would just wait until like early September and sort of lollygag until, because I was like, well, I'm just, like, I just want to wait till November, because that's whenever it's fun. Whenever I began having kids, it's like, I don't have all this time. So I was like, if I can work hard in the summer and explain this to my wife, because she's always like, you're out again. I'm like, listen, hopefully it pays off. In the past couple years, it has relatively early. Work your tail off, scout as much as you can, try to gain intel, and try to execute that plan come September. And it's really been, paying off, man. It's brutal, June, July, whenever you're in the, the timber and
bugs, the humidity,
and you're sweating, miles on the boots, hanging cameras and just looking for sign, mock scrapes. And it can be tough. And there are some days where I'm like, this is terrible, especially around here sometimes whenever you're hiking up cliffs, just to hang a camera. And you're doing that for 3-4 hours, of maybe a day. And, you take into effect, you're trying to do this maybe 2-3 times a week. Like, it's brutal before work or after work, whatever the case may be. It's tough, and a lot of guys, they don't want to do that because it's not enjoyable. It's not.
Yeah.
Um,
I always kind of, my buddy Tony and I, we kind of talk about this, that, there are parts. I mean, we love bow hunting, we love deer hunting, but like with anything that you really like, there are parts of it that aren't fun. Like it's not all like if I'm being honest, like there's not all parts of it are enjoyable for me, right? I do some of the parts that I don't find super enjoyable because just like working out, like be honest, I lift because it helps me be better at jiu-jitsu and just makes me feel better, right? But I hate lifting. Like I absolutely hate it. Like if it weren't for keeping me relatively, knock on wood, injury free, like in training, like I wouldn't do it. Like
right.
that's how much I don't like it. Like I don't need to be big and strong. Like I have I have no desire to like do that other than just be functional, right? But I do it because it helps me do a lot of the other things that I really, really like. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And deer hunting has a lot of the same things where it's like, there are parts of it that aren't glamorous and aren't necessarily fun or enjoyable, but you do them because the afterglow or the product it provides you afterwards is the thing that you're after. And that's what you really enjoy. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to sort of go back to, being humbled, man. Like whenever I first was like, I'm going to try to get in here early in the season, do my homework, grind as much as I can so I can maybe wrap my tag in September. I mean, there's been multiple seasons where it hasn't happened, man, and you just eat a piece of the humble pie and you're like, this sucks. You put in all this work, you think you figured out a deer, and it's happened to me more than what I'd like to say. And things just, they don't work out, man. But I say to people, that's hunting, man. Like, it is what it is. At the end of the day, they are animals. You cannot control what they do. You might think you have a deer patterned, and all it takes is just one wrong move, and it might not even be on your end. It could take some random guy walking through the woods, and that deer ends up moving 300 yards, 400 yards to a different chunk of timber. And he might like it there better now. And where did that deer go? You don't know.
Right.
It's happened to me numerous times, but I still like to work as hard as I can, knowing that I did everything that I could, even if that is the case at the end of the day,
Right. When you're doing all that work in the summer and stuff, man, what is the most important piece of intel that you're usually looking for that says to you that like, hey, I'm onto something here, or this deer is killable for me, or I think this deer is the one I can kill?
Consistency,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah. If, just like this last season, the deer that I was after, he was showing up almost every other day, at least on one or two cameras in a general vicinity of like half a mile, you know? So I knew just looking at like weather and his movement, there was a good chance that I could kill that deer. Um, I try not to camera hunt, but at the end of the day, it's like, how else are we going to do this? You know what I mean? I don't have time to go, observation sit every other day.
Mhm.
I just can't, with
Yeah.
life and work. So I rely heavily on the cameras, but something that I look for, um, I'm going to give a secret here. I try to look for trails that, like 3 or 4 trails that intersect into one. Okay. And like I said, there's a lot of hillsides here. So if you have a hillside, say for example, like this, right? Or just a flat, area, and there's a trail here, a trail here, a trail here, and a trail here. What I try to do, man, is these cameras nowadays, they have like 100-foot radius, where they can obtain that image. So I position the camera to where I'm not just looking at one trail. I'm actually looking at 3, maybe 4, maybe 5. It's,
Mhm.
um, and that's what I did with the deer that I shot this year. The property was like a gentle sloping hill that led down to where I shot him, but I only ran 2 cameras on that hill. But the way I angled the cameras, I was actually seeing 4 or 5 trails that were crossing the hillside. And I seen him at the most furthest and I seen him at the closest, obviously.
Mhm.
But I try to use the technology that we have to our advantage. And I only realized this like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, because I was always the kind of guy like where if you have a trail here, I'm going to angle that, a camera right here.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I could be using these for a lot more use than what I, have in the
Right.
past.
Yeah.
And they're expensive, man. So I try to get the money's worth out of them for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great tactic that I've used in the past few years is trying to angle them to cover more trails at one time.
Yeah. I
So
love that, man, because I think for me, I hang mine pretty high just for theft purposes and stuff like that, and people wanting to take SD cards and stuff like that. And the one thing that does, I mean, it keeps sticky fingers unsticky sometimes, right? If someone wants to steal something, they'll find a way, right? So
yeah,
it
they'll
keeps
climb up there
basically,
for chainsaw. Yeah,
yeah, it keeps honest people honest, essentially, is how I kind of look at it. But, in doing that, I cut a lot of my intel out because I'm focusing on an area where that deer's it's almost like trapping. It's almost like camera trapping, where it's like I have a
right.
smaller area that camera's going to pick up, and that deer's going to have to be in that spot to do it. Um, the upside is that I usually don't get, knock on wood, much stuff kind of stolen. The downside is I don't see nearly as much. Now, the cameras where I have placed where I can see a lot more, so valuable. Like, I've picked up deer in the past where I was like, I had no clue. Like, I never got them close to a camera, and I picked them up far away and was like, holy smokes, man, I didn't even see that deer before. Like,
Right.
I don't have him anywhere, right? Except on this one. And he's, 60 yards away or whatever,
Exactly.
And now it was triggered by a different deer that was closer, but he was in the background and I could see him. But man, I want to talk. You started kind of talking a little bit about the deer that you killed this year. And again, hammer of a buck and congrats, like, great deer. When did you recognize that deer? Or when did you, I guess, find him, for lack of a better way to put it?
Where did I find them? All right.
Not where, when.
When? Okay.
Yeah, when. Yeah.
So I do a lot of coyote hunting, me and
Mhm.
my two buddies, and we have a group chat. And those are like the only two guys that I really talk about any deer with or anything, personal. And my one buddy who lives relatively close to me sent the picture of the deer in velvet, and he was like, I heard through the grapevine that this deer's been running up off of so and so road. And I'm like, man, that's a hammer buck. Like, if that's
Mhm.
the case, I need to find out if this is true. Um, so once I seen the picture, um, I sort of just became obsessed to like learn if he was real or not. And in the past, man, like I've seen or like I've heard through the grapevine of, uh, deer living here and there, and then you find out that it's fake.
Mhm.
They're not even from they're not even from anywhere near where you're at. So, anyways, the next 2 weeks, man, there was a 2 mile radius, or a 2 mile stretch of road where the deer was supposedly living. And I would just monitor that road every day. I would just drive and drive and drive, hit every side street looking. Um, and I'm gonna be honest, man. After 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I was I was very close to giving up because
Hmm.
I just couldn't find this deer. Um, and I really haven't. So the first picture that I got was the only picture that I had. There was no other picture that anyone ever took. So I'm like, this has to be fake.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember one night I was driving home from looking for him, and there was a field that I've probably checked 100, 200 times for him, and I remember I seen a couple deer out of the corner of my eye, and I remember I like just looked over, and it was like right before dark, and I just remember looking over, man, and there he was just looking at me broadside,
Hmm.
and I just froze, man. I just crushed the brakes on my truck, and I looked over and I'm like, oh my God, I have to get a video. So I drove down the road, hurried up, pulled up my video, went back, and I got like a 20-second video, and he's just looking at me, and I'm like, it's him. Like, this is real, like this deer's legit. And I just remember driving home, man, just so happy, just happy that I could even see him, like,
Yeah.
um, I actually got the goosebumps right now thinking about it because it's just crazy, man, like how it all worked out.
Right. Well, let's go to that. Like, how did this all work out? Was there like, what? Because usually, like, when you kill a good deer, or a mature deer, or whatever the case is, like, there's usually like a chink in their armor that you have to figure out, right? Like, there's something that he's doing that makes him killable, right? Because you're obviously, like, they're usually pretty cagey. I have to imagine a deer like that. Other people probably knew of him. He was probably being hunted by other people, You know what I mean? Like a deer of that caliber,
Right.
you know, like he's not, just from personal experience, like deer like that, like typically become somewhat celebrities in their area, right? That people know of
Absolutely.
him and stuff like that. And so I'm curious, like, what was it for you? What was it that gave him away, kind of?
Okay. So where I found the deer, the next day I began to door knock. Okay. And I was on Onyx looking at, uh, just the landowners in the area, seeing if I knew any of them. Um, and I'm gonna give another tip away. There's a website. It's called True People Search. Okay. And if you type in someone's address, it'll show you who the owner is, and it'll also show like relatives and people that they may be related to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the property that I found him on, I went back there the next day, asked them, if I could hunt. They were like, absolutely not. So then I had to sweet talk them. I'm like, well, what about if I just put up a camera? They're like, for what? I said, I just want to see the deer that are in the area, nothing more. They're like, okay, but you have to call us and, let us know. Sure thing, whatever. So that day I put up a camera. That was the only camera that I had for that deer at the time. And a few days later, I got my first picture of him. It was a video, shedding velvet. And from here, I was just like, this is insane. Like, he's actually showing up where I seen him, like,
Mm-hmm.
like sort of building the pieces of the puzzle, but I knew I was still so far away from coming close to, harvesting him just because of where he was at. But sort of to go back about the website that I mentioned, the property next door, the gentleman owned, um, I believe he owned like 4 or 5 acres, which is like pretty big for around here. And I was like, man, if I can get on that, like that would be great. So I looked up his name on this website and relatives came up to someone that I knew. So I
Mm-hmm.
reached out to my friend and I was like, hey, does your mom's parents live here? And he was like, actually, yeah, they do. And it's funny because I served with him whenever I was in the Marine Corps. So I was like, maybe I have an in.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and talked to them. And right off the bat, they didn't want to hear what I was saying. They were like, absolutely no hunting whatsoever. Even after I, explained like, I know your grandson, this and that. We served together. But they let me run, my cameras, which
Mm-hmm.
was great. So I had 4 acres to work with. And between that property, the first property, and the property that I ended up killing them on, I ran roughly 10 cell cams throughout there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, and whenever I scouted, the property, man, there was no sign of anyone trespassing, hunting, because the gentleman was older and he was like, "We do not allow any hunting." And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, "There's a good chance someone's sneaking back here,"
Right.
um, and there wasn't. I
Hmm.
I found zero sign. I didn't find a climber. I didn't find a camera. I didn't find anything. I was like, "Well, this is huge." So I only scouted that property for one day, and I hung all of my cameras in one day. This was back in, I believe this was late August, early September. And then I would not even think about going back in there. I just wanted my cameras to do the work because the property was so small. And the way that I angled my cameras, I said, he's either going to be hitting them or he's just not, or he's, going to move. And then I missed my chance, and it is what it is. But
Right.
after I deployed all my cameras, he began showing up like clockwork, man. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just like praying to God, like, please keep your pattern. Don't change. And after I think like after a week, this was probably like the first week of September. The cameras, they've been out for like close to 10 days now. And he's just hitting everything like AM and PM too. So after like figuring out like how he's moving with the wind, I was looking at the map and like, where can I kill this deer now? Like where can I legally hunt? Um, and there was only one property within the area that he was sort of passing through that I could kill him on.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going up to the door to get permission, and my heart's beating 1,000 miles an hour. And I'm like, this is the only property where I can kill him, because whenever he was hitting this property, it was like right before dark, like right before, like you cannot see in the woods anymore, like
Mm-hmm.
very close. And I remember, man, the gentleman opened the door and we began to talk, and lo and behold, he was actually the paramedic chief for the township that I work in as a cop. So we kicked it off right away, and it was just great vibes. He said it shouldn't be an issue, but he had to talk to his wife, and I hate hearing that because I'm like, they always say no.
Right.
The women always say no. So I was like, oh man, like I remember going home and I'm like, to my wife, I'm like, she's like, why are you so nervous? I'm like, because if he says no, then it's over. Like I can't kill his deer.
Right.
The gentleman called me back the next day and he was like, actually, I think it'll be okay if you hunt here. And I remember I was like, sir, thank you so much. I remember I went downstairs into my deep freezer. I grabbed like 20 pounds of deer meat, I grabbed hot sticks, back strap, ran it over to his house. I'm like, please take this. And he's like, what's this?
Right.
I'm like, it's deer meat. You'll love it. Just please take it,
Right.
that was the least I could do.
Right.
And so from there, I put up another camera on his property. And the same thing, man, that deer was coming through at like 7:05, 7:10 every other day, on a specific wind. It was always like a northeast wind. And it was funny because whenever he hit the camera on the first property that I had in the morning, he would almost always hit the property where I shot him at. And it was weird. It was like if he was hitting this camera on this wind, it was almost like clockwork that he was going to work his way down here.
Right.
Why? I have no idea, but thank God for the cameras because they tell you so much, man.
Yeah.
I will say this, for this deer, I've never analyzed more weather, wind and just the pressure, just like trying to
get the correlations together of like when
why
he does
is he doing this?
Yeah, exactly.
And I figured out he was moving through where I could kill him on a northeast wind.
Mhm.
And I remember going into the season, the opener, it was a northeast wind, so I'm all pumped up, and I didn't see him. And the following day, I believe it was a south wind for the 21st, which it was still good for me. But I was like, I'm just going to go hunt. Like, what do I got to lose? I'm off work. Let's just try to kill this deer. And so, yeah, man, that's how it worked out for me.
How did he end up coming in? Like, how did the shot all kind of play out and stuff?
Yeah. So do you know how I told you that I had my camera angled at the lower side of the hill so I could see all the trails?
Yeah.
So he preferred to be tighter to the bottom of the hill, closer to the camera. And it's sort of like necked down. So the hill was like this, and then it would neck like this. And then my property was like right here. So he just favored walking that hillside and sort of like sloping down to where I was at. So yeah, I remember I was up in my tree on the 21st, and it was like 6:30, 6:45. I seen a 6-point about 150, 200 yards away walking at me on the same trail as the camera, closest.
Mhm.
And I'm watching him through the binos, and I watched him for about 20, 30 seconds. And out of the corner of my glass, I just remember seeing just antler just walking. And I remember glancing over and just like my throat just fell. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like it was him, and he's coming right to me, and the wind was good. And it was just so many emotions, man, like seeing a deer of that caliber, like walking towards you, and the wind was good. Like everything was good, like this might happen. I remember saying to myself, like, this is going to happen. Like this is a chance, and, as they approached, they probably got within like 60, 70 yards, and this other 8-point came off the hill, and the deer that I shot in him, they began to spar. And at this point, I'm like, this might not be good because I've seen deer in the past, whenever they spar, they sort of break apart and one goes one way. And so at this point, I'm nervous. I'm watching them, and it was cooler than hell, watching them fight right in front of me. And it was great. And after they broke apart, it was like they looked at each other and they're like, all right, man, we're cool. Come on.
Yeah.
And they just, all three of them just started to walk to me, man. And I remember the buck that he was fighting was in front. They were sort of in like a triangle formation. the buck that he was fighting was in front. That smaller 6-point was right here, and then he was in the rear. And the whole time while they're fighting, mind you, I still have my binoculars up, just looking at him.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't take my eyes off of him either.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, I know. And as he's coming in, at this point, I'm already standing up, ready to shoot, but I have the binos like this, and I'm just looking at him. And I remember he's like really close at this point, and I'm like, dude, you need to get ready for the shot. Like, this is great. But I was just in awe of him, you know. So I remember, you know, dropping the binos. I checked the wind super quick, and it's blowing right over my shoulder, and that's where the trail was. And I was just so worried that the first deer that walked through was gonna check up, because that's exactly where it was blowing. But luckily, he walked through. The other deer walked through that smaller 6, and at this point, I'm pretty much blacked out. I don't even remember drawing, and I remember looking at him, and he walks into the shooting lane 20 yards, and I'm like, meh, 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 meh. I'm screaming. He will not stop. I probably did that 7 or 8 times, and every time it just got louder and louder. And finally, he checks up, and dude, I'm shaking so bad. I remember just squeezing, and I seen the arrow hit high, and I'm like, oh man, like,
yeah.
I remember shooting, hearing the impact and seeing him run off, and I turn around and I'm just holding on to the tree, and I'm trying to just watch what he's doing. And it was pretty thick behind me, so I lost him. And this is crazy, man. So like 20 seconds later, I hear fighting again. And I'm like, oh no, I missed him. I missed him. Like, why are they fighting again if I shot him, you know?
Right.
So at this point, I'm sick. I waited like a half hour because I heard that. And I remember getting down, walked over, checked my arrow, it was covered in blood, but no bubbles, you know? So I'm like, oh man, like, what if I hit him in, you know, no man's land? Like, this isn't good. I didn't even look for blood. I just left. I went home. I went home for like 4 hours. I shot him at 7, a little bit after. I came back like around 11:30, 12 o'clock, and this was going into Monday morning. And at the time, man, like, I haven't told anyone about this deer. Like, I haven't told any of my close friends that I found him, that I was on him, anything. And I sent a picture to a couple of my friends in the group chat, and I'm like, dude, just smoked a huge doe. Like, what do you think of the blood from the arrow? And they're like, dude, she's 100% dead, like 100%. I'm like, well, can you come help me, you know, track her? Because I wanted to surprise them.
Right.
I'm like, man, it's already 12 o'clock. Like, I have to be up for work. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this sucks. Like, I have to go track this, you know, deer by myself. So I get back. It's like midnight. I go to the point of impact, and I'm not going to lie, man. First 25, 30 yards, there wasn't a drop of blood. And I'm about to cry. You know, I'm like, this is unreal, man. The biggest deer I've probably ever killed in my life, and there's no blood. Like, this is horrible. So I remember tracking a little bit further, about like 15 yards more, and the blood just opened up. I don't know what happened. I don't know how it got clogged for the first 30 yards or what happened, but after that, it just opened up. Once I found blood, it was probably only another 30-ish yards. And I remember I'm sitting there and I'm just like, before I found him, I'm just thinking about like everything that I've went through, like as a hunter, like thus far in my life, you know, and just sort of taking it all in by myself because there was no one else there, you know. I walked a little bit further, and I remember out of the corner of my eye, I just seen white. And I'm like, there's no way. And I remember I, you know, hit my headlamp and I looked over and I just seen his rack laying on the ground. And I'm like, tears, dude, the tears started rolling.
Yeah.
You know, I remember I didn't run up to him. I just slowly walked up to him. And I remember just kneeling down, man, and just turning his head and just looking at him and just like, just so much respect, man. Like, people don't understand, like, the chase and, you know, everything that you put into these animals. It's just, a lot of people think you're nuts. And because we are. But the respect that I have for the animal is just overpowering, man. Being able to look at a deer like that you've legally harvested, is just an overwhelming feeling, man. Because
Yeah.
just like we said earlier, you do everything right, and sometimes things don't work out your way.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
there's a part of luck that's involved in all of it, when we
oh,
have success, you know what I mean? And that's like
absolutely,
and
yeah,
that's the humbling part, right? Like that's the part why we feel like that, because like you can do everything right to your point and it still doesn't work out. And and there's something else that has to happen for you in order for things to work, right? And it's
right,
not of your control, and that's the part that kind of leaves you in awe a little bit, because it's like all these things had to line up. Like I did all my parts, and that doesn't equal good sometimes. And so I
right,
need these other little helping pieces that all have to fall into place for me to get this one opportunity with this one unique animal, right?
absolutely,
Yeah,
right, yeah, man. I
yeah,
just have so much just respect for the animal. Like, you know, it's just so hard to put into words. How you feel whenever you walk up on them.
yeah.
Like it's sad almost. And
Oh, yeah,
just it really is sort of sad. Like you were a true giant. You
yeah,
were the smartest deer in the woods. You know, and it's just humbling, man. It is
yeah.
so humbling, and I love taking people out that have never been out hunting before and sharing that with them,
Hmm.
because not that I've killed 100 160s in my life or anything, but I've shot enough to where I want to share that experience with
Yeah,
other people. I
yeah,
love being behind the camera or being up in the tree just watching them, helping them,
right.
and it's just such a great feeling whenever you can experience someone else feel that. You
Yeah, yeah.
um
Man, that's awesome, dude. I'm stoked for you. It's a heck of a buck, dude. I'm happy for you. It couldn't happen to a better dude, to be quite honest. Just getting
I
to know you,
appreciate it.
man. So you deserve all the success, man. You grind, you work. You have an appreciation for it. So you're the type of guy that I think we all root for and like to see. There you go.
Yeah,
Nice.
out for you. Yeah,
There you go,
yeah.
dude. That's a mega, dude.
Uh,
I'm gonna try to find me one of those. How about that?
that's it, brother. That's it.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, buddy, I got to get running, man. I got to get to the gym and get my jits on. But before I let you go, though, let people know where they can find out more about you, where they can follow along with anything you have going on, whether it's deer hunting, yotes, or whatever the case is.
Yeah. So my coyote page. Let me look it up real quick because we changed the name on here real quick. Hold on.
No worries.
Yeah. So if you go on to Instagram, it's
Mhm.
TEAM __ plague PLAGUE. That's our
Nice.
coyote page. And then if you want to find me on Instagram, add me. I'd love to follow you back. It's just DOM PALOMBO, and that's it. You'll find me on there.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate you, man. Let's stay in touch, buddy. And if I'm ever out in your neck of the woods, I'll give you a holler.
Let's
And
link up.
you do the same thing.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tacticam, Osseo Gear, Hawk Optics, Face Off E-Bikes, and Lathrop & Sons Boot Company. And until next time, we'll see y'all.